So it's Sunday morning. I have my amazing cup of coffee over here. Can we just fuck?
If we ran Nintendo.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to episode 167 of If We Ran Nintendo. I am Bobby, the Nintendo Guru, joined by the greatest co-host in all the land, Mr. Sean Capri.
Bobby, it's nice to see you today, my friend. Although I gotta say, just to say, you can talk for most of the show, but I just want to say this right now. I think I'd rather go back and play some Zelda, my friend.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah, so we'll have a nice show. We've got great topics. We've got Brandon Myers helping us out today. But I gotta say, I just keep tearing up at this stupid Link's Awakening game, man. It is so damn good.
Why are you tearing up?
It's just so, the music, the way that they've done the theme in this rendition of the theme, I think is super special. It's the cutest damn Link I ever saw in my life. And all the Mario stuff, I'm jumping around with my feather. It's everything I ever wanted, man. It's so good. I get emotional. I'm an emotional person. I'm also very tired these days, Bobby.
Okay, I don't know why that is, but okay.
I don't know why either. I might have an iron deficiency.
Well, if you were smart and you lived your life like your son Link, and you learned how to eat while you're sleeping, that would just.
Oh my god, dude, that was the funniest thing.
I'm sitting there watching him, going, "This kid's gonna choke."
He's full on asleep, and he reached, he grabbed he grabbed his little puffs, and he's just stuffing his face, sleeping in the car yesterday, man. It was so funny.
I'm like, this kid is like, he's thinking outside the box.
I know, I know.
If I eat while I sleep, I don't have to stop playing to eat.
That's true.
Keep going and living my life.
You just need a little bit of fuel, but you don't want to totally wake up for it.
He's preparing for when he becomes the hero of time. He's going to basically be able to sleep and eat and then go fight monsters all day long.
Guys, check out, like, on Instagram, I don't really do any gaming stuff. Like, I've decided that's mostly, like, family and kids and stuff like that, but that's kind of what we're talking about. There's a video I posted on Instagram yesterday. Lincoln, on the way back from Calgary on a 3-hour trip, falling asleep in the back of the car, and he went and, he made sure that he was well fed. So he's a good independent kid, you know what I mean? You just throw him back there. He can have a nap. He can have a little snack. It's all good, dude.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. So Sean, let's kick this episode off like we do each and every episode with our shout-outs.
Geek outs. Oh my goodness gracious, Bobby. The Snake Amiibo is not in very good shape. In my, I bought one yesterday. I found one at EB Games. But before I bought it, I love it. Got it. This is actually a shout out to the folks over at EB Games. I went in. I was really excited to get a Snake Amiibo because I went in and I asked for it, and he just motioned to where it was. I'm like, "Do you have a Snake Amiibo?" He's like, "It's over here." I'm like, "Yes, you do." And so we kind of made a real good connection right at the start. And he's like, "I have to warn you. I don't know what the UPS guy did when they delivered everything. Games and everything in perfect shape. All the other Amiibo, perfect shape. The Snake Amiibo, it's like they did that Ace Ventura move at the beginning of the movie where he steps on a box and he squishes it and he kicks it down the hallway and everything. They're all damaged. And like some more than others, like there were others there that were just like
the boxes or the actual Amiibo.
The packaging of the Amiibo is all like the cardboard and sometimes in the plastic and everything. So we're sorting through. They think they had like 5 or 6, and we're sorting through. And it's so funny because it's me. The store is full. There's other people, but it's me and the 2 guys who are working there, and we're examining each and every one. And we're like, I don't know, man. Like from the front, this one looks okay, but like on the back, it's kind of like messed up and everything. So long story short, they sold me one and they gave me a discount. They said it was store worn, and they gave me a discount for it.
Wow, that's awesome, dude.
Very cool. So I don't even know if I want to take it out of the box or not, but I just really appreciated the fact that they let a whole up, just so you know. Like, it's not that bad. Like the one that I got is not that bad, but it's like they knew me as I walked in the store. They're like, this guy cares about the packaging.
I got all mine. Mine are coming out. I'm not even keeping them in.
I just don't even know where I'm gonna put them. That's the thing about it now. There's too much. The boxes take up too much space.
The thing is, man, that's one. Number 2, dude, there's over 100 and something of them.
I know.
How in the world do you even have space for that? You know what I mean? So dude, my top shelf up here, that's just Smash Amiibo.
I know.
And that's 2-3 deep. I've pushed them back.
That's crazy, dude.
And then I have a whole wall here that are just all various ones. These ones aren't Smash at all in front of me. And then I'm going to have to put my other cases up in the other room and put some more over there because I'm out of space, man.
I know, because your 3rd and 4th walls are going to be covered with actual Nintendo Switches.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, my God, yeah.
But you don't have to buy every color, Bobby. You don't have to buy every single color.
Okay. Let me explain the deal
that I got. Oh, really? Really?
Oh, dude. So
this guy's selling Switches out of the back of his truck.
Best Buy, I bought. Best Buy, I bought flat out. I bought the yellow one, flat out, done. And I was like, I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna buy 3. Me and Miguel stopped at GameStop yesterday, and they were doing a deal where if you traded in an iPad Pro towards a Nintendo product, Nintendo Switch, they would give you a $300 trade-in.
Whoa!
So, because Miguel is an elite member, they give an additional 20% on top.
20%?
Yes. So I actually paid for the second 2 Switches $60.
Oh, that's pretty good.
So that's why I jumped.
You just don't have an iPad. iPad Pros are worth a lot, aren't they?
iPad. It's a original gen. It's
okay.
Yeah,
this is okay. This is okay.
And I don't use it anymore to draw.
I was worried about you, Bobby.
Like, yeah, no. The thing is like I kept the pencil because I just thought if I do buy a newer iPad Pro, because that has been debating lately. But I've also been thinking about doing like what Adam Leonard does. Adam Leonard has this
get that actual tablet.
He's got the tablet. It's and I looked at one of them when I went to E3 last year or 2 years ago and looked at them and got some brochure information. Those things are really, really cool.
Yeah,
what he has.
Yeah.
So I've thought like if I'm gonna go do this, like go spend the real money and get a good one. You know.
Talk to Fiona McKinnon as well. I'm not sure which one she's using. But Fiona McKinnon as well. I'm not sure if she has the same one or I'm not like because Adam does it for a living. So I imagine that his is like this $16,000 box or whatever.
No, they're not as bad as you think.
Maybe 17,000.
I mean, they're probably 20,000.
Yeah, exactly. Number keeps going up.
That'll be a Patreon goal. If you guys can get us to $20,000, I'll buy this thing.
Look, man, patrons are already helping out for the Extra Life right now, so it's all good. Everybody, man. Speaking of that, Skinny Matt talking to us about coming down with Preston. It's gonna be amazing, dude. Everybody who's thinking about it, I'm going to be looping back to you guys, but shout out again to Lee NAVARRO. This is going to be a big deal.
We almost had Justin Masson there. We were close to having Justin Masson.
Are we not having him there? It's not happening?
We're not going to have him now. Yeah, he has to do some work stuff. He's traveling the same exact time.
I'm just going to show up at Justin Masson's house one of these days. I'm just going to drive on down and say, hey, I'm staying for the weekend. You take care of the kids.
Well, you're going to do that here, so that's going to be fun.
That's true. Oh, my gosh, dude. I can't believe it. I think I don't know if we really talked about this, and I'm just gonna make you agree to it right here. But we could pre-record. We could have a couple of these shows in the can and do it live. Like we could have it like in your house. We'd like together, so that the next couple of weeks worth of If We Ran Nintendo is us in the same room. We could be walking through your house. You can make a cup of coffee, have our Wawa.
I'm good with that.
Our ba with the ba.
Listen, let's get into the seriousness. Let's do some shout outs here, okay?
I thought we were. Justin Masson, EB Games, Lee NAVARRO.
Come on, that's not really shout-outs. Chris Johnson.
Oh, yes.
He reached out to me this week.
Me too.
And he was like, hey, man, I was listening to If We Ran Nintendo. I'm so glad that you guys kept it going. I appreciate it. And I'm like,
love him.
Thank you, man.
Right?
That really meant the world to me, man. It really did. Especially with, I mean, I don't know whether he was really getting into where we are, but I think there was a moment where I was kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing here. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of scaled back on my content because of my health issues, and I was just like getting real worried. And now we're pushing forward. I'm having the best time of my life. You know, so it's, you know, so I appreciate that comment. That means the world.
Well, and he's got a trillion things going on, man. He's got his podcast. He just moved. They had PAX a little while ago. Like, he's got a ton going on. For him to just take the time. That's the thing. Anytime anybody just carves out a little moment of their day to reach out and say, like, hey, I listen to what you do, and I appreciate it. That is amazing, dude. Because you kind of get in your own little world, right? Of the people who are always engaged, and you never forget those people, and you're always grateful for those people. But those are the only ones that you're aware of. So sometimes it's like, I think 5 people listen to the show, and so it's always nice whenever somebody kind of comes out of the blue and goes like, "I'm still here." Is really amazing.
Yeah, I think what even more enamors me about Chris reaching out to us is Chris was writing for EGM years ago, and it's stuff that I read, and like
he's a real deal.
So I look up to these guys. You know what I mean? Like that and 8-4 Play, the podcast. I listen to those guys too, John Ricciardi and all them, and like I look up to those guys as well because I'm like, I read their stuff.
Yeah,
You know what
man.
I mean? Like, so it's kind of cool to like this guy who I kind of look up to is reaching out to us to be like, hey man, you're doing a good job. Like,
There's no kind of about it, dude. Like, I just think that he's so I just want him to be in my family. He looks like my brother-in-law. Like, he looks very similar to my brother-in-law. Right? I think we're both maybe, you know, torn from the same cloth or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, very, very cool. Everybody should be checking out the Player One podcast because
Absolutely.
they have been, you know, they've been going for like 25 years or whatever. They're on episode like 670.
Yeah. They started way before anybody else.
They were starting the days where you had to download the podcast from your computer onto your iPod.
Yeah.
Like that's what, they're OG stuff, man, and they've been absolutely killing it lately. My sides are splitting when I listen to the show, and I really truly adore them. So to have them reach out, I'm glad he reached out to you as well, man, because it was just like, it gets to the point where you're like, I don't know what to do with this. This is so nice and kind. I'm like, oh, gee, thanks, Chris.
You're like, you didn't say nothing to Bobby. I can't say nothing to Bobby.
I know, right? Well, I wasn't going to, but I'm glad you mentioned it.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't know you reached out
when
to
they
you.
do nice stuff like this. It means a lot.
It's very cool.
So here's another shout out that I have. Patrick McNamara, Mr. Nintendo Talk himself. Listen, he's going to be on Nintendo Talk Live. We have brought this show back. We resurrected it from the dead.
You sure did.
So I record today with Toby a little bit later. That show goes up on Mondays, but then every Wednesday, which I've always coined as NES Day, is going to be a live Nintendo Talk, and we're going to do different topics. And this week we're going to continue the trend of the top 5, Pat's top 5 Nintendo games of all time.
That's great, man.
And it's so much fun, man. It's such a blast. But I love getting back into the live mood. Like, it just felt good to do that show live last week with Nick Militia. We did with Nick Militia on, and that was fantastic.
Yeah,
so.
Chelsea and I listened on the way back home. We were driving along, and
Did you?
Yeah, we had it in the car. It's weird because Chelsea can't stand when I listen to podcasts fast, and I don't think many people can really do that. And I can't even get it like just a notch up. I can't get to like 1.2 speed. She notices.
Yeah.
Everything is so slow to me though. Like, it's so weird just to like, even like music. We were listening to OK Beast, and oh wait a minute. Okay, I got another shout out for those guys. Anyways, we were listening to you guys, and we very much enjoyed it. That's my point.
Okay.
That's it. I've got another shout out that I was gonna kind of bleed into.
Go ahead.
OK Beast. The boys at okay, so for a while now we've known that Blessing from OK Beast was going to be on Kind of Funny. They ran a contest a little while ago, like the up and comers kind of thing. They had Chloe on a number of weeks ago, and it just like it was such a huge deal for her, and she's absolutely exploding, and rightfully so, because she's this totally dynamic, hilarious, awesome voice in the video game space, and they gave her a platform, and people love her, and as they should. And now the next they had 2 spots. They had one for Chloe, and then OK Beast or Blessing got the next one. So for a while now we've been kind of waiting for Blessing to do this, and just last week Greg Miller spilled the beans that Alex Van Aken is also going to be there.
Get out.
He's going to be there with Blessing. They're going to San Francisco. And man, I remember when it happened for Blessing and everybody was like, congrats, Blessing. I reached out to Alex and I said, like, I hope you're doing okay. Cause I know that can be really difficult Blessing he's the head, he's the pioneer, he's amazing. And everything is well deserved for him, but it's really hard when you're right there with somebody and then they get that sort of thing. So I reached out to Alex. I'm like, I just hope you're doing okay, man. You're amazing at everything you do. And so when this kind of leaked out, I'm like, oh, thank God, man. Like, he's so awesome, and he's so kind and so talented, and I can't wait to watch every moment. They're going to be on almost every show at Kind of Funny. So if you guys
but I don't know if you saw this though. They're all Blessing is doing the games cast, and I'm assuming Alex is too, but with Austin Creed from Up, Down, Down.
Yeah, dude. Huge. It's enormous.
And those are wrestling fans, Xavier Woods in wrestling. Like, I love the New Day and all that stuff that they do, and it's like, man, this is amazing to see this. This is a great opportunity, man.
It is.
It really is.
And so well deserved.
This is life-changing, game-changing moment.
Oh, that's for sure.
You're getting that exposure to there, and then boom. You know, it's huge, man.
Well, think about like what those guys do for indie games when they throw like their showcase and it lifts those things up. This is like dedicated. They get a whole week, dude.
Yeah, man.
and they're great. They have nothing to worry about. They just go up there,
Yeah.
they be themselves, and just more eyes on them. Holy cow! I'm so
Yeah.
damn proud of them. From the very first moment I ever listened to either one of them, back when it was Pixel Pulse Radio and OK Beast, so special, so different and unique. So shout out to you guys. Shout out to OK Beast. Everybody should be checking those guys out. Blessing Junior on Twitter, and It's Van Aken on Twitter. My goodness gracious.
Yeah. I agree. Okay, so today we're going to discuss a couple things that we wanted to talk about, and one is I'll let you kick it off first. You threw this at me about talking about playing the Switch on TV.
Yeah. So yesterday when I was at EB Games, we had a nice little chat with probably a little longer because Chelsea was waiting in the car with the kids, but I probably should have been speeding things up a little bit. So we're talking about Switch, and I was asking them like if the light was selling well that day, if it was kind of crazy. And he said it's okay, it's fine. And he said, I kind of wish Nintendo would make a TV only one, like a non-portable, and it's just a dedicated kind of console. So you kind of do the flip side of the Switch Lite, which you can't connect to a TV. He would like something that you could only connect to a TV. So there's no screen on it, kind of like the Vita TV that nobody ended up caring about. And so I thought about this, and I'm like, this is a great, if you're a Nintendo topic, like, would we want to do this? And I actually said to him, like, I could see them doing this, but I wanted to throw it your way to kind of see how this hits you, because it's weird how Nintendo can create revenue and excitement and all of this stuff around things that seem so limiting. Like, why are we excited about this light that we can't connect to the TV? I think there's a few people who are quite loud about it, and I get it, but it seems like Nintendo just continues to go against the grain by limiting features and then making $1 trillion off of it. So I kind of wanted to explore that notion with you a little bit.
So here's the thing with me, right? So when it first got talked about, a mini, when they were calling it the Switch Mini, I didn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
I really thought, like, man, this just isn't for me. I don't really like playing my Switch in handheld. Makes no sense. But then I really thought about it. I was like, I enjoy the 3DS in handheld.
Right.
And I'm like, but do I really want to dedicate one console to handheld? I don't want to dedicate my Switch to just the handheld mode. It's not going to work. You know what I mean? It's not going to work for me. So before, I would have said absolutely not for the TV mode.
Right.
But if they would give me a TV mode, like if the Pro that we're talking about here is just a strictly TV mode,
yeah,
I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I think that I would be okay with it just being TV mode.
I'm starting to think that too.
And the reason why I say that is because, and I posted this in Discord this week. Brian Altano basically did a breakdown of how you work the Switch to have two consoles on the same account.
Okay.
And what you do is, I basically took his whole thread and I posted it in our Discord, and it's basically a channel by itself that just says owning two Switches. And essentially what you're going to do is, as you create this account and you make your Switch Lite the primary account.
Okay.
Now, you might say to yourself, like, why would I make that the primary account? That's not my main Switch. The reason is your main Switch, your primary account, is not going to bounce back to the internet to make sure that this account is legit.
Right.
Because you're on the go with it, you won't have the ability for it to bounce back, and then you won't be able to play games.
Right.
The one that's connected to the internet, you make your main account, right? And then what happens is, or your home account, your
that
home
makes
account.
sense. Yep.
And then what happens is, before you go to play a game, it just sends a little, and the way Brian says, it's just like a handshake.
Yeah.
It's like a handshake, boom, and then you go. And then essentially, so now I can basically play my games on the go and come back. Now, you also have cloud saving now, so I can back up my handheld to the cloud and then go back to the TV, jump in, download from the cloud, so that way I'm up to date, and then start playing again. If that's the case, if that's what we're talking about, if I could have two individual consoles that are able to play the same games, and I could take one that's dedicated for handheld out on the go and play my games on the go, and then come home and play one that's dedicated to TV mode that maybe has a little bit more ass to it.
Yeah.
And can actually push some more power to it.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And be like, you know, here we go. We're gonna push this, and we're gonna make this a better thing. Man, I'd be all for it.
Yeah.
And because it's become it's not the perfect thing. It's not ideally the greatest perfect thing, but from what I'm understanding is, from reading with Brian L. Thompson, it just works, and it works really easily.
Interesting.
And it's not that difficult. Now,
interesting.
My one thing that I throw out there, and I go, it would be kind of cool to have this, and I want to see how it actually works out. But they're also saying that potentially there's people reporting that you can actually play both accounts at the same time, a la what you and Chelsea do.
Whoa, really?
Yes.
So accessing the same game at the same time.
Yes. I haven't tested it, and he hasn't tested it.
We gotta get on this.
With his friends, and they said that if they use the same account, they can actually play online games at the same time.
That is interesting.
You would have a Switch. Chelsea would have a Switch. You could play Splatoon 2 at the same time, and it would stop you guys from essentially.
Well, we bought the game twice, like Mario Kart and Splatoon. We bought all these games twice, which, I think I've said it before. Like, I actually don't understand how that makes any sense for Xbox or PlayStation to do that. Like, we're using two copies. Like, there's no way around it. Like, I don't understand it. So I get that part of it. And to me, like, this seems like a very Nintendo Trojan horse kind of like ass backwards way of getting at the console market, because there's really everybody acknowledges that there is no way that Nintendo comes out and competes with PS4 and Xbox One with an underpowered only console, like an at-home console. They had to do this hybrid thing. But man, as time has gone on, and now that there's this library, and the Switch as a platform is undeniable. Everybody wants it. They see that it's good on the go. They see that it's good on TV. The only way that I think that they could really sell a console, a home console, is to do it this way, in like these three stages: the hybrid, the handheld only, and then this one. So if it were ever to take place, this is the only way that it could possibly have happened. Now, okay, so I think that you and I are both on the same page that this would actually be a good idea. You're saying a little bit about power.
One thing I want to say this is a good idea for you and I.
Sure.
Business-wise, it is not a good idea.
Okay.
And this is why I say that. You are absolutely limiting your market to just North America and Europe. You are eliminating the Japanese market.
You think so?
Yes, absolutely. The reason for this thing is for Japan. The Switch Lite.
I see what you're
Switch
saying.
Lite was created for two things: Japan, the Japanese market, and for families in America and Europe who have multiple kids and they want to get them in their hands and go, and no problem. I watched a YouTuber. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Starts with an N. He's a Japanese YouTuber, and he's like, this is a must buy. Now, when it came to Switch, he was more critical of it and all that stuff, but in the Japanese realm, in the Japanese world, this was a no-brainer, have to buy. So when you think about it in those terms, right, and you go like, hey, this is what we are at, then yeah, man, the Lite makes total sense to me. The TV mode only, you have to really think about it and go, because here's a tricky game that you play. I want it to be more powerful, obviously, right?
Yeah. But
you run the risk of that thing not being able to play on the Lite anymore.
Right. Yeah, you have different versions of the same game. How do you have, do you end up having like this performance or resolution mode options on a Switch game? And then the other thing that I think about is like this would essentially be the third piece of hardware that they would be selling individuals. Like I see this as being on an individual player basis, not necessarily for like there's somebody who doesn't have a Switch, but like they didn't want the hybrid. I can't imagine that being the case. This is for somebody who's going to have both. So then how do you price it accordingly? I think the reason that the Lite is such a no-brainer is because they got that price down to $199. Yeah. So if we're looking at like it's a completely different direction. Yeah. It's limited to one TV. It's now competing against other consoles. So it's, in a way, it almost has to have a little bit more power, but that's going to push it up in price. So it being the third piece of hardware, still not going to be as powerful as the other consoles. It's going to be more expensive. Like, as much as I just wanted to explore this in a positive space, like, I don't know if that's going to make sense. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily the way that you have to do it. Because the console itself is very small. Like, the tablet itself is very small. So you have to imagine that taking up the screen, we talked about this all the time with the Wii U. With getting rid of the gamepad, you get rid of the gamepad, you cut that thing's cost in half. So maybe that would allow us a little bit of space to play with and make this an attractive proposition.
Perhaps, but again, my biggest fear is some developers are struggling. Like, don't get me wrong, there's some developers that like Panic Button, stuff that Panic Button does works on the Switch, no problem, no issues, just boom, go. But then you get developers like CD Projekt Red, which seems like Witcher's going to be a little bit of a slog or a little bit of an issue. Then you get games like Overwatch and Fortnite that can't run 60 frames; they can only run 30.
Yeah.
So it's like what happens? So you put this game out, and the developers are going to start. I think what happens is the developers go like, well, I don't want to make it for the handheld.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make it for the TV mode, and that's all we're doing. And you run that risk of what they did with the new 3DS, where you alienate people, and now people get mad at you. We have Nintendo. Well, I say we, but Nintendo has such a great relationship with consumers right now.
They really do.
If you do something like this, I believe it alienates the hell out of people. And now people are like, because it becomes this. Even if you did make the handheld mode or the TV mode $200,
right?
What's the first word people can say? Oh, so if I want to do this, if I still want to have the hybrid situation, because I want the more powerful home model, I'm paying $400 now.
Yeah.
Why do I have to pay $400? And I believe you start to fracture that relationship that you've built. Nintendo is right now in the perfect position where when anything bad happens, like, they just make another announcement and everybody falls back in love.
I know, right? Yeah, Banjo's in Smash, so everybody's happy.
Yeah, so you do something like this, and I think you really upset the cart. And
that's an interesting take. Well, I mean, anything anybody does is probably going to upset a good portion of the internet. People are going to be loud about that too. And as you were talking about the new 3DS, and as we kind of think about these sitting alongside other platforms, this is another positive for it. This could be a way for them to bridge the gap between the now generation of Switch and the next generation of Switch. So for them to build sort of like the next more powerful version of it, maybe that comes in the form of a non-screen, non-handheld version. So they start to get the components in this piece that isn't quite as complex as the all-in-one, the screen and everything. So you just have it dedicated to the console. And then maybe a year after that, that's where the hybrid comes back. So you kind of do a bit of a leapfrog back and forth between hybrid to dedicated handheld to console back to hybrid, which is a little bit more advanced.
Here's the thing when I think about it, right? I mean, why do you want a TV only mode?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the reason behind it? Because essentially, right now, I have a TV.
You have a TV mode, of course.
That Switch never comes out of that dock.
Mm-hmm.
It never comes out of the dock. I have it set up to stream whatever. If it comes out of that dock, it literally goes into the dock in the living room.
Well, it's the same question. It's the same question about the Lite. Why would you want just a handheld only mode? You have a handheld.
Well, it's not the case, because I didn't like playing handheld because I felt like it was a little too bulky and too cumbersome to carry around.
Okay, so I would say the same sort of argument happens for the home console as well. I don't love how this thing sits. I think I would rather a little bit more of a permanent sort of setting. I would rather like an HDMI or a network cable attached to that thing. Like, there's a lot of features there that I would like. Like for it to sit in my entertainment center a little bit better.
I would even go as bold as to say I would love to have an external hard drive be able to hook to it.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a whole other side of things here too, where it's so small. That's kind of what I was getting at before. What if it looks more like a Chromecast? What if it's just like it just slots right into the back and it's an HDMI thing? Like, so you're right. Like, it has to be. We have to think a little bit more about this. It can't just be another box sitting right and it looks exactly like a PS4.
It has to have more bells and whistles.
Mm-hmm. Like convenience to it. You plug it in and you go. Like, that's the Nintendo model, and that's why I like my Chromecast so much.
So something that Brian talks about in that thing is the downfall to this is having the two is you have to re-download all your games to your new Switch Lite. He said, but the nice thing is I got to pick and choose what I wanted on the Switch Lite because I didn't have as much space right off the jump street. Right. I have a 400 gig SD card in my Switch right now. I'm not going to have another 400 gig SD card to put in the new Switch Lite. Right. And I'm already maxing out. Like the other day, I had to delete a bunch of games off of that thing. So it would be nice then if I could basically hook an external hard drive to a TV mode only. Have a 5 gigabyte external hard drive or a 5 terabyte, sorry, external hard drive, right? And just load it with games, right? Never have to delete games off my console because the biggest fear of deleting games off the console is what happens if the store pulls it because of licensing issues.
That's a good point.
You can't ever get the game back again.
That's a good point.
So now if they're on my hard drive and it's stuck and I have it, and so much so that I could even go buy a second one as a backup just in case my first external hard drive fails. Because they're cheap enough.
You would totally do all this too. I know it sounds insane, but you would do all of this.
But then if I had my Switch Lite, that I could pick and choose the game of the game of the month that I'm playing, or the games of the month that I'm playing.
Yeah, just peel it off of there.
Already loaded into that one, right? And then I'm good to go.
Yeah.
Because the one thing he said was, digital games, you have to re-download. But if you have disc, like cartridges, it's like boom, 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 done. You put it in that one, you put it in that one, it just works. You know what I mean? So ultimately, I like. And now that I think about it, like I said, it depends on the bells and the whistles. If they do all this, then it's a no-brainer. Sign me up. I'm in. But Nintendo does make me a little nervous when it comes to that stuff because they don't do all that stuff.
Well, it's true.
The bells and the whistles.
It's true. I think about this sort of thing all the time of having like a home base. I like having all of my games on my one Xbox, but I can peel it off to the other. So I don't have everything like loaded up and everything. I love the network transfer. It's also faster too. You don't have to rely on your internet speed. It's just your network speed, and everybody has a fast network speed. It's all pretty much the same thing. So that would be quite a bit better, Mr. Bobby. I think that would be pretty good.
I mean, so let's just real quickly, let's just think about this home mode, right? The TV mode only. I said external hard drive is a must. You want an Ethernet port, must. Has to have the ability to hook up Bluetooth headsets. Must. So I think that's 3 things that we both agreed have to be there.
That's right.
No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They have to be there. I would also allow it, as crazy as it sounds, I'd probably allow it to go backwards compatible with some other controllers.
That's what I was thinking. Like, what do you
like hook up the bar, the sensor bar, so you can have the Wii.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Just so you can have the Wiimote and the nunchuck as backup. I don't know about the gamepad, but I wonder if the gamepad would be okay to hook to it. So what I'm thinking.
Well, that's what the Switch Lites could be. That's what I was thinking. The Switch Lite looks like a gamepad, and how do you, kind of mirror those two technologies?
Because my idea is what you do with this TV mode only, right, is you start to create the ability, and this is going to lead into our next topic, to backwards compatibilize all your Wii U catalog, all your Wii catalog, and GameCube and all that stuff. If you allow for these other controllers to be backwards compatible, because you have a dock only, a TV mode only, just makes it easier, I think.
I was starting to visualize sort of like basically a Sega setup where you have this Frankenstein machine, just like you start adding on pieces for to allow for discs or cartridges or something else. Like we went back, I think it was last week, we talked about Nintendo buying GameStop. And so if you were to kind of have like you just have to have all your bases covered on that side. And then it becomes a conversation about, are they distracted with that, or should they just be putting out Link's Awakening and other gorgeous games like we've been getting? So I don't know. It's a tough one, man. We always have to kind of consider all the things that we would want to do, and then the things that kind of have to get taken away in order for that to happen. So,
like I said, we're leading into the next topic, and that's powered by Patreon. Patreon.com, Yumi Capri. This one comes from Brendan Myers. If we ran Nintendo, with both Xbox and Sony announcing their newest consoles will be backwards compatible, would you find a way to make it work with the Nintendo Switch? And so I think ultimately, we're both under agreement that, like, there's a way to make this work. You make
Of course.
it work.
Yes.
But here's the thing. The cartridge-based console that Nintendo has at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
there is no such thing as backwards compatibility.
Right.
Unless they have a virtual console.
Mm-hmm.
There is no, like, the advantage to what Sony and Xbox are doing is the fact that they use discs since the very first time.
Yep.
So they're still using discs, and they have that ability to just go. Nintendo has never been a fan of discs because they don't want to pay Sony licensing fees.
Yeah.
Just the way it is.
I know, it's so funny.
It's always been that way.
Yeah.
So it's held them back, So it makes sense. It doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Nintendo has always wanted to have a proprietary system so that way they get paid for their cartridges. So this being said, obviously it isn't going to be compatible like the typical thing. But I wonder if there's a way to sell an add-on or a peripheral.
Basically like a Retron. Right?
Exactly.
We got all the different slots in there.
Plugs in. Yeah, that plugs in. I mean, if you wanted to make it where it's, and I think that's where you run into the thing of like, where Nintendo, I think that this topic has probably come up a few times for Nintendo.
Yeah.
And I think Nintendo's probably looked at it and go, well, they can just go buy a Retron if they want to do this.
Possibly.
But I think that the thing is you would sell more if you could basically sell a box that just plugs into the Switch via USB, right? And on that box, you have a slot for NES, Super Nintendo, N64. You have a thing that takes GameCube discs and Wii and Wii U discs. And basically, that's your all-in-one box. It just hooks up. Now, it sounds crazy. It sounds nuts. But I literally bought some stuff from Neck Militia, right? And it's crazy because you go through the paperwork on it. So what I bought from Nick Militia the other day was a Famicom disk system. And this was a time when Nintendo did an add-on to the original Famicom.
Yep.
Which was these little discs, like floppy disks.
Right.
And the Famicom disk system plugged into the Famicom, and then you took these discs and you inserted them.
Yeah.
And it actually had better music and better graphics, and everything was a little bit better on those things. So Nintendo is notorious for doing things like this, like the satellite system.
And the 64DD?
Yes, the 64DD. They've always, in Japan, they've always done these add-on systems that have been like these. So I can see them tinkering maybe with this.
Right.
Where you get an add-on that will allow you to do this. And obviously it's very niche and very, not everybody's going to want it. But there's a huge community that are out there right now pirating and stealing your stuff.
Yep.
Why not give them an option to go back?
Everybody is trained to dock the system anyways. Like that's built to do that. So you could have something like this that just sort of like snaps onto, and then it has access.
New dock.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I mean. Yeah, you sell a different dock.
You sell a different dock that where you actually you can dock your Switch. And I would even take it a step further, Sean. I listed all the stuff that I would have on it. I'd go a step further. I'd add Virtual Boy. I'd add Game Boy, Game Boy Advance.
Snap.
I'd have slots for those as well.
You know what? Take Sega while you're at it. Put Sega stuff on there.
My thing is like, hey man, let's do everything so people can then, because what I feel like it's a twofold basis. One, it eliminates people from going, because then you have a fight back at people. Because when people look at them taking down sites that pirate and all that, and do ROMs and all that, Nintendo doesn't have a good argument. Right. But now they can say, hey, you're taking away from something we're selling. Yep. This is your option. If you want to go do that stuff, get your games, put them in this, play this way. The argument that comes back and says, oh, well, what about Earthbound? It's a $150 cartridge. Well, man, that's just what it is. That's just the market it is.
Can I ask you this? Because I think we're talking a little bit about like the technical and maybe the legalities around it. Like, do you think people want it? That's kind of what I'd like to explore a little bit here, because I'm glad that it's happening on X. I'm not gonna try and tear that down. I'm glad that this is a thing that it seems like the gaming community has won, similar to cross-platform seems to be a thing that is winning. Call of Duty I saw, I think Joseph Moran posted a screenshot. Just this beautiful thing. All these players across all these platforms. This is now a thing. Backwards compatibility seems to be a thing. I'm wondering if it's going to matter in the grand scheme of things for this next generation. Or does Nintendo have, like, I'm starting to think maybe Nintendo has one more generation before this really becomes a problem. Like, I don't know if it's a problem that they don't do it just yet. And they're also selling us games over again. They're doing the remasters. They're doing all of the games from Wii U that we bought before. We're buying again. And so it becomes this, like, what do the gamers want? And what are we screaming about as a huge deal versus what actually makes sense for the company? Like, like I said, I'm glad that it's happening. I don't understand how it's making sense, like, monetarily for Xbox particularly.
It's not making any money for them. At the end of the day, it isn't like somebody's paying to do this stuff, and that's ultimately what I would look at and go, like, you're buying this peripheral, this dock. That's where you'd make your money back.
Especially on the physical side is the part that I don't really understand. It added value to Game Pass and things like EA Access because you're allowed to play. You can play these older games. That part makes sense to me. So that's where it's like, obviously that was central to Xbox's move. I don't know if that's part of. I think that has to be part of the end goal if we're talking about back compat on Nintendo. Is it has to kind of it can't just be about backwards compatibility. It has to be about something else. It has to be about some sort of, like, service or other revenue generating thing, because selling people old games it's just not going to work. It's not going to be, it's not going to make any money.
No, you're ultimately what this becomes is just, you're giving something to the consumer. That's it. Because you could look at backwards compatibility on Xbox and on PlayStation. And at the end of the day, how many people really take advantage of it? Like,
right.
And not just if you raise your hand right now going like, oh, I've done it. No. Not done it. Have you done it? Like, lived it? Got a bunch of games, installed them all, been playing them on the reg, on the norm. I guarantee you the numbers are very low. I guarantee you the numbers are not, like, you're a huge Xbox fan.
Yeah.
How many times have you actually taken advantage of backwards compatibility?
Not many, but I think this is a good. I'm glad you brought this up because I think it's a timing thing of when backwards compatibility matters, and I think it's when a console launches. And it's like Nintendo used to face this all the time. They used to fight with Sega about it as well, where Sega would say, "Bring your games forward," and Nintendo would really go. They would really have to jump over that hurdle and say, "Parents, we're really sorry." Like, they would actually do the apology. We're really sorry your old games, the NES games, don't work with the Super Nintendo, and try and, like, jump over that hurdle. I think that they might be heading up that again, but it's that certainty that platforms can provide gamers. Like, I feel great that all the games that I'm buying right now, and particularly not just games, but my accessories, this is something else that Nintendo really spearheaded with the Wii controllers, the Wii remotes. They all move forward. I have my big expensive Elite controller. It's going to work with the next one. I've got all my games. They're going to work with the next one. I've watched friends of mine go and sell all their games because they're getting ready for a non-backwards compatibility thing, only to find out that the next generation is back compat. So in terms of, like, keeping your audience at your platform, backwards compatibility is hugely important, because if you detach generation to generation, it creates this opportunity for somebody to go, I'm going to try something else. If I'm leaving all this stuff behind anyways, I might as well go try something new. But if things carry over, then things are a little bit more familiar, and it matters at that point in time. But right now, I think not really. So it's just a matter of, like, to the question.
I think that Sony got bullied into this situation.
Well, that's why it matters now, because they risk, if they don't have it, they risk people going back to Xbox.
I don't think people would leave. That's the thing. I don't think that people would. I think that
people did leave Xbox to PlayStation. It's very easy.
Not because of backwards compatibility.
No, but because there was no backwards compatibility. Because of the difference between 360 and the One, people went, screw this, I'm going to try out this other thing instead. I mean, there's a trillion other reasons why people did that. But I think that if they had at least carried over the legacy of the shooters and all the things that people loved about 360, if that carried over into the One, it would have been a much different story, is my argument. But I don't know, man. It's very strange, because Nintendo has this weird history with legacy.
Well, I think the thing is because Nintendo monetizes it.
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo makes money off of their history. And,
well, now they
and
have
the other
first-party stuff and they have third-party stuff, and that's the other difference too. Before it was like, who cares about back and pat on Nintendo, because it would only bring forward your Mario games, and you just play those on your old systems because nobody gets rid of those. But now they've got games that cross the board, and those are the things that's the type of thing that matters. If you have Witcher on all three, but if your Witcher copy carries over in one of those platforms and not the other, you're probably going to stay on there. So it's not a game changer in and of itself, but it's just another little checkbox that people kind of consider when they're jumping from one console or generation to the next.
I don't at this point I don't see. I mean, like I said, I feel like all this is fan service.
Right.
It's not anything. I don't think there's a single person. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that I've ever looked at a console and went, "Oh, this thing isn't backwards compatible. I'm not buying it."
I agree with you.
I just don't.
I personally, I'm in the same boat.
I look at what the console can do, what games are there.
Mm-hmm.
When the time comes for a new console, I am ready to move on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go back and play. Now I say that, right, and here I am playing Link's Awakening, right?
Well, I think it's different. I think that I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah, but it's still a bit different.
But I mean, like, okay, so.
But it becomes a convenience thing, Bobby. Think about when you buy a new console and then you have to have, like, there's a period of time, like, when is your Wii U still plugged in? Probably not at this point. But there's a period of time where you have both plugged in. And imagine if you just don't have to do that. Like, it becomes a bit of a convenience thing where you don't have to have your PS3 and your PS4 and now your PS4 and your PS5 plugged in. You just jump to the next one. You're like, everything just works. And you can have those games that are still, like, the week before that next generation came out, you're still playing that game. And let's be honest, launch games suck anyways. So you're probably going to want to kind of keep playing some of those old games. That's why I think that timing is the most important thing. Middle of a generation to launch backwards compatibility, it's like, whatever, man. We're kind of into it now. We're getting our good games.
I guess my point is where I'm coming from is like when Xbox first announced, or Microsoft first announced backwards compatibility, I was like,
yeah, okay,
whatever.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were.
Because it was in the middle. It was like, we're done. We're beyond all this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it was basically them setting up a pawn piece for the future.
Big time.
And that was what they, you know what I mean? Like, they built this around what they do. I think they're in a luxury of, you know, again, they've used the same media format the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're using disc for 5 or for 20 years, makes it easy.
Right.
You know, where Nintendo, like I said, they've changed all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we were still using the original NES, like NES cartridges, no brainer.
No doubt.
But it's a different ballgame. You know what I mean?
Well, and it's such a PR move too. Like, there's no discounting that part. They said it's not possible, and now it's possible, and everybody else is saying that it's impossible. So now it's just a leg up thing. Like, it becomes a bit of a PR thing of whether or not it's moving the needle for any gamers. It's, does this do it or does this not do it? Like, it's the have not type of conversation that seems to generate like weird momentum on some of these things, these conversations on the internet. So those are the types of things that you really have to be worried about, whether or not they're actually going to move the needle or not, but the perception and the conversation of, oh my gosh, like, Nintendo only does 30 frames per second and it's not backwards compatibility. And like, can you imagine if they didn't have the crossplay thing? Like, they were really leaders in that as well. So it becomes part of this package rather than each individual thing that I think would be concerned about.
So, okay, let me ask you a question. If we ran Nintendo, right, and we were to sit there and go like, hey, we're going to allow, like, we're going to create a Nintendo Online backwards compatibility type thing, meaning if you're part of Nintendo Online, we're going to get, like, they just open up the library. Like, right now they're doing it, but they're not. And the reason why I say that is they're doing it, but the Nintendo Online games are all because they've added something to it where you can play online with people. If we just eliminated that feature and we just went, boom, here's 1,000 games that if you're a member of Nintendo Online, they could up the price, you know what I mean? Because then there's a lot of value coming, right? But if they were to say like, hey, here's 1,000 games that you could play day one, let's go.
Yep.
Like, you could basically give us an extra $20 a month, right? Or $20 a year, whatever it is. So you're $40 a year now. But here's 1,000 games we're going to give you. And maybe it has to be more than, I don't know, price-wise. But here's 1,000 games you get, go. Here's NES, SNES, all these classic Nintendo games. boom, at your front door. Man, I think that's a win.
Well, I agree, and I think the way that, like, it seems like a rainy day type of move, just like it was for Xbox, that you kind of save that, right? Because at some point, you're just going to have to cut through all of this crap. Like, there's so many if this, then that, like, you get these games, but not those games, and it's NES and Super Nintendo and only some of the games. Like, enough of this garbage. You know what I mean? Like, it's so complicated, so convoluted, that at some point, you're going to need to just kind of make it simple. But I don't think that the time necessarily is now. To Brendan Meyer's question, I don't think that it matters right now. Ultimately, I don't think that this is something that they need, because everything is going so well. But at some point, it can be like a real trump card for everybody else. Like, this could be a deal breaker for the others if they just came out and said, you get all the games, because nobody has a backwards, they don't have the history, they don't have the library that Nintendo has. No. So when they unleash that, it's like, holy crap, dude, look out. But they kind of have to play that card very wisely.
Well, the thing too is, right, so if they were to do it at the start of the next console, in theory, I believe it, and I've said it numerous times, that new console, man, that thing don't hit for a good 20 years.
Like the next version, like, so you're saying, like, there's still Switch.
Like it's going to be ultimately different editions and versions of the Switch,
right, straight
through. But when they move on from the Switch to Wii U 3 or whatever they decide to do,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that moment, it's so far off that backwards compatibility might not even be a thing at that point.
Well, and that's kind of that's another sort of element of this story as well. Like, we've been talking historically, but all the way back to the NES. But, like, really, do you just sort of, like, pick a gen and go, like, from here, this is where it's really going to work? And I think it's critical for the Switch, because that's kind of what PS4 is doing now. They won this generation so in such a crazy fashion that they can't afford to disconnect this generation from the next. So that's why backwards compatibility matters there. I would argue it's the same situation for the Switch, that they've had this huge success, all these tens of millions of people buying it, that they can't risk a disconnect. They can't risk... But I mean, even as I say that, because it makes sense on the Sony side, they did that with the Wii and the Wii U, and it didn't really work.
Yeah. No.
Like, it was...
Not at all.
It was basically the same system.
It did nothing. Backwards compatible, it did nothing for them. They did it between the GameCube and the Wii. Now,
and not even any of these limitations. Like, it was like perfect back compat.
Yeah. And the Wii was very successful, right? But it had nothing to do with GameCube backwards compatibility. So I think it
just wasn't part of the conversation, though. Yeah, it does depend on them. That's why. Like, it wasn't, nobody was talking about backwards compatibility back then. Now people are like, now, you know what, we just have so much. We have so many things to be happy about that we're just finding things to complain about. I guess this is one of the last remaining things.
Exactly. So that is all.
How are we supposed to play all the Kirby games from back in the day, Bobby? How? I haven't done that in a while. It's been a bit.
We don't have to play Kirby games. That's how we do that.
Switch Online. That's how.
All games are backwards compatible except for Kirby games.
Can you imagine?
So that is all. Thank you guys for listening to another episode of If We Ran Nintendo. Episode 167 is now in the books and done. Thank you guys for listening. You can check out everything that Sean Capri, I'm over here drooling and stuff.
Oh, wow.
You can listen to everything that Sean Capri is doing on the internet. Follow him, Sean like Connor, Capri like the pants, over on twitch.tv/Sean Capri. You can follow me, Instagram, Twitter, @Nintendo Gurus. That is all. Peace out, Preston.
It's dangerous to go alone. Take this. I'm Toby, and I like to play video games.
So here we go. Sunday morning. It's a time to break down to thank the amazing patrons over on Patreon. We start off with our gold members, Mr. Brendan Myers, James Johnson, Ryan TURFORD, Coach Timbo, Sheldon Benedict, Joel Brooks, Dawn Becker. Thank you guys so much. Our platinum producers, Nasty Boots and Tammy. We appreciate each and every single one of you guys. And then we hit our diamond executive producers, Bobby Miller, Lee Navarro, Corey Hicks, Jonathan Brown, Purple Monkey. Thank you guys oh so much.